everyone. As Catalina said, people like me are quite unique in these projects because I am born in Sweden from Swedish parents, and that goes on for generations. And I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 of us of that kind from all the 4 countries that don't have the experience of being migrants. So from my angle, it will be the teaching angle, since I have been teaching for 32 years, not only in this area, but in different areas. And I was also director or principal for a few colleges during 18 years, but I never stopped teaching. I taught all the time. And my experiences is coming from the classrooms on part of the projects, because I don't have the academic background to be an expert on these kind of things. I'm a musicologist and historian, and from the beginning, so it is from the practice. My angle or my viewpoint is coming. And these kind of colleges where I work, they started already 150 years ago. And they raise approximately 150 colleges in Sweden of this kind, community colleges. And the common thing, the only common thing between them, is that they are almost all of them run by NGOs of different kinds. So there is no 2 similar colleges. They are all different, and they are all run by different movements. For instance, in the 1920s, 1/3 of the Swedish population were members either the temperance movement, the free churches, or the labor movement. 1/3 of the population. And these 3 organizations run 4 high schools, these kind of colleges, to have an emphasis on civic education, to make these groups in a country that didn't have freedom of religion, where it was sort of unlawful still to be a Catholic or a Baptist, not unlawful, but it was really not easy to be. They started colleges to be able to educate their own young people, to get voice, to know how to address authorities, and to know how to be responsible in the life of organizations. That goes back 100 years ago. Today, or rather, a bit more than 10 years ago, the first Scandinavian college of this kind with a Muslim ethos was started. The person who founded it was himself a student at a college when he came here from Eritrea as a refugee, 17 years old. And they got the help from a Baptist school of the same kind to start. So the Baptists helped the Muslims to start their own community college. And now, just recently, the Muslim community college helped the Jewish organization to start their community college. And I have been involved in this process, ending up with me, a member of the Swedish church, is the vice principal on a Muslim community college and sitting at the board of a Jewish community college. Maybe that is a picture of the modern world. And the courses we have, one of the training modules that we have been testing in this project, as Catalina said, is a course that is a sort of mirror of what happened 100 years ago among the free churches. So now we are one of the modules in the course that is aimed to teach young Muslims in their own traditions, being aware of their own traditions, but also the Swedish society, and being able to take responsibilities in the parish life, in the congregations. So it's the same kind of course, but it's a new group that need to have a voice, that need to know how to address authorities, that need to know how to organize the communities and the organizations. So it's the same kind of things that are occurring once again. So we have been involved mainly as a leading part in the development of this self-assessment competence framework, which means that we have developed a sort of a self-assessment matrix on what kind of competences is needed for people like me teaching or engaging with migrant refugees, and as inner compass for adult educators. An inner compass, because you have, I think we all have the answers inside us, so what is important. Because if you, for instance, to take an example, these areas that Catalina pointed out that you're watching on page 4, one of them is affection and belonging. And what is one of the very interesting things that I found in this project is, regardless of what kind of questions we put to these groups, vast groups of migrants and refugees. For instance, in my college, we have approximately 400 people involved in activities, evenings, weekends, daytime. So we have, and of these 400 students, I would say that less than 2% is people like me. All of them have themselves experience of being refugees and migrants, or at least the parents. So we really have had the possibility in Stockholm to use the right group to put the questions. And I think that is the case in all the places we have been working. And regardless of the questions, we get the same answers. It doesn't matter if it's Turkey, Sweden, England, Spain, always the same answers from the same questions. And what has been very obvious is that there is one of these life skills areas, I would say, that is my conclusion and my experience, where everything starts. And that is the affection and belonging. Because if you can't feel safe, not only from violence or wars, but also from that you have a situation where you feel sure that nobody wants to harm you, nobody wants to make you inferior, or feel wrong, then nothing will happen. I think we have the answer inside us, everybody, because if my daughter was in a serious car accident, or if I got the information that my wife had cancer, or if the interest was raised in a way that I almost likely would have to sell my house or my flat, I would not be able to concentrate. I would not be able to do proper work, whatever I do, or to study. And to change countries, especially as a refugee, I reckon, is bordered with losses and with difficulties. So I would say that the starting point that is needed to be able to give the situation that makes it possible for people to start to learn is the safe space. And concerning competences then, what does that mean? That means that you have to be able to create this safe space in the classroom as a starting point, before you can even think about learning grammar or whatever it is. And I think that now I speak for I have my experience, and that is Sweden, of course. The modern education, the modern formal education is, how do you say, it's marked by high speed, massive amounts of knowledge that you want to squeeze into the young people or into the migrants as fast as possible. But if you don't have this safe space, it's not even worth to try to start, I believe. I think this goes for migrants, it goes for young people, I think it actually goes for everyone. It's, in my personal case, I think the language, when you're thinking about things, the language is important, because a word that is very common now in all kinds of situations is the word individual. Individual is coming from the Greek atomos, which means something that is not possible to divide, but that is divided or separated for the other units. As the word person from persona, also Greek, means, from the beginning it was a mask or a role in the drama, and later on it was a human being with special, unique qualities, like morals, like common sense, like ability to judgment. And every person carry the qualities in a unique way. And you never, ever have an individual in a classroom. It is always persons. An individual is something, it's a component that is changeable or replaceable. A person is not. And you have to start by realize you're always working with persons. If you don't do that, you are trying to start a factory. And that is not working. I will finish by giving you an example, an experience I had just a bit more than a month ago. I don't know if you're aware about this political week that our Prime Minister Olof Palme started in the late 60s. It's a political week in Gotland, the island outside of Stockholm, called Almedalen, where a lot of politicians, all the main parties, all party leaders, is gathering for approximately a week. Approximately 3,500 seminars is made during this week. And we had, along with Initiatives of Change, another organization, Initiative of Society Development, I see the translation would be, have a tent that is just beside this area of the political week, where we is performing a sort of good conversation, listening, brave, curious conversations. It's not a lecture with questions, it's a conversation about different topics. And this summer, we were supposed to have a workshop within the project on the Pyramid of Hate. And just before we started, 14 members of the main Swedish Nazi party went to this tent, sat down. We are sitting in the circle, having this conversation, face to face. And they were actually the main group in the tent. The rest of us were approximately 12. And from the beginning, they were not aggressive, but they had a lot of attitude. But they sat down as they should, and then the facilitator, our colleague Per, started just briefly to explain the model of Pyramid of Hate and Pyramid of Hope. And from the beginning, some people in this Nazi group really was eager to tell us why the model was wrong from the beginning. But we had some reflections on the model, and after 10 minutes, the facilitator asked us to turn to a neighbor, someone we don't know, and just to reflect on what was said. And what happened then was that they, do you say lowered the guard? Can you say so? Yeah. They lowered the guard completely, and this massive body of very articulated Adjorkali people that was really tight, completely fell apart into individuals. And we had a conversation for 1.5 hours in different small groups about the Pyramid of Hate, about prejudices, about history, about hate. And these guys from the Nazi party, they really listened. And they was also, of course, able to speak. And we had in this group, we had an old Jewish pair, an old Jewish couple. We had people with migrant experience, and we had people like me. And after 1.5 hours, everybody was supposed to say something from the stomach of the experience. And the Nazi people said things like unbelievable, relieving, revolutionary, sensational. And some of them actually cried when they went, giving the hand and cried and went away. So that was one example of what a safe space actually can create in this case. I don't think these people are really rehabilitated, of course not. But at least I will stop. At least they know that being aggressive as a massive body of a group is not the best way to have discussions about society. Because in this way, they will listen to and they actually was able to listen themselves. Okay, thank you.